But the IB one is actually very interesting because there's elements of this, the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes that we first talked about earlier this morning. All three components are actually written in. And you can see how they weaved all three of those components in. How do they develop inquirers, for example? They develop inquirers because they have an actual question that every lesson is framed around. Why does Allah exist? That's the question. And then you're speaking about aspects of Aqidah that need to be taught but through a question. The outcome is, can the child answer the question at the end of the lesson? And if the child can't answer it, that's your measurable. But the inquiry is shaped around questions. So I'll close there because I think these types of conversations can continue. But in summary, we've gone through a day, and I'm going to be ending soon. The reason I'm ending soon is because I've learned over the years in all of my workshops, the best thing you can do is end early. If you end late, you get horrible reviews. So you end a few minutes early. The second reason why I'm ending early is because I want to give you ample time to write good feedback. Not good, but detailed feedback. Because feedback means a lot. To us as an organization, to me as an individual who's facilitating, feedback means a lot. So I want to end early so we have a few minutes to actually write some detailed feedback. And I know some of you have already written it, but you can always go back. So as closing thoughts, some of the things that we've done, we've looked at the challenges. This morning we started looking at challenges and priorities, the questions that you had. I'm hoping, inshallah, that we covered at least most of the questions that were initially raised, curriculum related. I can't commit to covering everything, but curriculum related questions hopefully were addressed. We looked at 3 key ways of looking at curriculum, 3 key ways of considering an analysis of curriculum. We looked at the mastery versus the spiral model, which is one debate, one model. We looked at knowledge, skills, and attitudes in multiple ways, including the IB learner profile. And we looked at stages of development. And we looked at, we applied that to a number of different curriculum frameworks. So hopefully, inshallah, this is something that you will then take back to your schools. So, to close, I'd like to do a few things. One is, as I'm just wrapping up my final thoughts, if you could please take out your feedback form, and if you've already written it, if you could read it again. And constructive feedback is very useful. So feedback on how we could improve, how I as an individual could improve, how this could have better benefited you, what did work, what didn't work. The more you give, the better for the benefit.
On behalf of the Learning Circle and Ustaz, I welcome you to the workshop. I'm very grateful for schools who have cooperated with us. Especially I would like to thank the Environmental Welfare Trust, the Marine Education System, Reflections, HIRA, Society for Education Welfare, City School, Star Soft, Learning Spree, Al-Badr, Jamia Amina, Z International, Information, Fajr, and I don't name all the schools. Brainy School, Mediators, Ikra, Dawud Public School, the Educators, Education Foundation, SOFA, Generations, Manhal, and the Youth Club. Thank you all for coming here. It's a pleasure to host you. Dr. Nadeem Ayman is here with us, Alhamdulillah. Dr. Nadeem Ayman is a research fellow at the Institute of Islamic and Education in the School of Education at the University of South Carolina. He is a co-editor of 2 books, Philosophy of Islamic Education and Discipline, Devotion, and Dissent. He holds a PhD in Theory and Policy Studies in Education from the University of Toronto, which itself has made its mark. It's a very famous institute for education studies. He also founded the Razi Education, which was called the Islamic Teacher Education Program online, and he successfully ran that for quite a number of years. And I know many of his cohorts are participating with us today, alhamdulillah. In addition, he has also held faculty positions at Centennial College, Canada, and Al-Hawaii University, Morocco, and the University of Toronto, Canada, as well as Wilfrid Laurier University, Canada. Thank you. Mr. Nadeem, welcome.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم. I'd like to begin by thanking you for coming for this session and the honor of being here back home in Pakistan and being invited by Ustaz, by the organization Ustaz, and having an opportunity, inshallah, to have some really, really rich discussions over the span of today. As was mentioned in the introduction, I've had an opportunity over the past couple of years to really focus on thinking what Islamic education and Islamic schooling can look like. And really over the next couple of hours, our goal is to share and discuss some of the challenges, successes, and ways that we can think about Islamic studies and Islamic education in possibly a different way. The overview for today, as you probably have seen, is that we live in an age where Islamic studies is a contested subject, which I think we can all recognize. We live in an age post 9/11 where Islamic studies is a contested subject. Fears around Islamic studies being taught in ways that are overly teacher-centered, overly didactic, some say irrelevant, are arguably empirically valid. And what I mean by that is there have been studies, research studies done by Muslims, Muslim educators and researchers to confirm that there are some challenges. When we speak to students themselves have often said, in particular in Islamic schools, that they feel that they are disconnected. And this is not obviously the experience of everyone. But there's validity to this. And I think in any schooling system, whether it be with Islamic schooling or Islamic studies or other, is to acknowledge that constructive criticism is a good thing. And that if we're hearing from some students that they feel that they are feeling disconnected or disengaged, then our perspective as educators should be to understand why it is that they're feeling disengaged and to explore that. So we do this exercise, inshallah, for the next couple of hours today, really with the intent of being constructively critical of ourselves and seeing how we as a community of educators can think about something that's very precious to us and very important to us, which is the study of Islam, in a way that might be more beneficial and more...
To hear it from you.
Very good question, and I think it's important to discuss that now because the rest of the day will be about mapping. Mapping is this: when we think about curriculum, the textbooks, the books that we bring, and this is the material. So curriculum layout, this is what we're going to teach. Which are the books that we're covering. Curriculum is based on, the foundational curriculum is the actual objectives or the outcomes that you want to achieve. Right? So if you look at a textbook, any book, it has chapters, it has sections, it has an order, it has a sequence. How was that sequence developed? Level 1 in this topic in level 2. Why did you put this topic in chapter 1 and this one in chapter 10? Well, how did you determine the sequence? Because in curriculum mapping, and we'll go through this in detail later, but in any subject area, you build over time, right? Children come in, जब उनको कुछ समझ में आता है, you say, okay, well, you don't understand this, let me help you understand the foundation of this concept. So if they don't understand the foundation, we as teachers know what the foundation is. So हमको मालूम है कि we're going to start here, and then we're going to teach this, and then हम ये करेंगे, and then we're going to do this. But the other teacher says, no, I do it like this, and then I do it like this, and then I do it like this. And then another teacher says, but I do it like this. How many different Arabic programs are there? If you go to study Arabic, there is a gazillion programs on teaching Arabic. And every program says we teach Arabic in a way that you will learn it. Right? That's the promise of an Arabic program. You go to an Arabic program, Hamara, this way, this is it. We figured it out. every student that goes through our program, they learn Arabic, Fusha, you know. But the reason is because of the mapping. Each one is mapped in a different way. So what we're going to look at today is how these curriculum have been mapped. Is look at a few different examples and say, let's analyze why they put certain things in certain areas. What's the significance of it? And again, when we look at curriculum, and I say this with the utmost sincerity, that it's very important for us to recognize that this is years and years of work that scholars have put into developing curriculum. So we're not doing this exercise as a way to demean or to take away or to, you know, say this was wrong. The purpose is really for us to learn and to say, what were they thinking? Why did they put this here and that there? And what, if, you know, maybe if it's not working, how could we do it differently? So that's the, does that help? Any other initial questions, thoughts?
Can we, in your studies of this curriculum mapping, can we see this kind of mapping?
That's a good question. I don't know. I haven't considered it. I'm sure there's scholars that have. The mapping of the Quran, the way that which surahs are revealed at which time, at which stage, and also the pedagogical aspects of the Quran in terms of how Allah is teaching us certain lessons through certain stories at certain times. I'm sure obviously, you know, there's hikmah in that. I haven't thought of it, I haven't studied it, so I don't know. But maybe there's others in the room that have. And again, that's, I think, one of the big benefits is that in these types of sessions, and we've got a group, an equal-sized group on the sister side that has an equal amount, if not more, to bring to the table. So this is a lot of minds around the table, inshallah. I'm looking forward to, inshallah, gaining from you and hopefully us all gaining from each other. Other thoughts, questions? Yes?
One thing also that we need to keep in mind is that students are changing over time. And how they learn and what affects them is also changing over time. That's not a constant.
Very, very, very good context. Because every student in every context will also have unique aspirations, and I think that's a very important point because we have to make a decision when you're developing curriculum whether you're going to take into consideration the needs of the students or not. It's very easy to develop a curriculum and say this is going to work for all the students around the world. This is the key to it. I'm not saying it's wrong. There might be some people who think that way, that's fine. Right? This text, we do this text, and this is the way it's been done for centuries, and this is the way we're going to do it. That's possible also. And as you mentioned rightfully, if we look at it another way, you're looking at the needs of students, who they are, what their aspirations are, what their career path is going to be, what their context is, what their, you know, what are the topics and the issues that issues that arise in their context that they need to be prepared for. So, very, very good point.
Complementing your point, what you have just said, that scientific inventions, that also plays an important role in the pedagogy and the teaching and the way the students learn. That is already, you know, changed a lot.
Yes.
And it will keep on changing. So, very rightly said by the gentleman that that really matters.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so, and we'll get into all of these things. More so the aspects of pedagogical aspects we'll cover in a subsequent workshop, and even getting into deeper needs of students we'll cover in a subsequent workshop, but they're all interconnected. So irrespective of whether we're speaking about pedagogy or curriculum or something else, assessment or evaluation, they're all interconnected, right? So, and inshallah, I'm assuming the sisters are watching all of this, but sisters, equal message goes out to you that feel free to engage, ask questions as they come up. Please interject and, you know, feel like you're in the room, inshallah, to engage. Khair. Okay, any other initial thoughts or questions? All right. I'd like to start with a question. 3 questions actually. 3 questions that I think are critical, especially when we're spending the day together. As I mentioned,
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
The third session is how curriculum is mapped. Over there you write mapping KSL. What is KSL stand for?
Right.
Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
The good question. The KSL is knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and we'll speak more about that inshallah as the day progresses. But knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Those are the three general. I mean, 1, 2. Okay. How many of you have forgotten your numbers already? That's good. So if you can rearrange, if we can get you can leave your things or you can take your things because we'll be moving a lot. So be ready to move. If we can get the 1s somewhere over here at the front, right here, 1s, 2s somewhere back there, 3s back when the chairs don't move, you can stand. So you can, if you need to go into a corner of the room somewhere with the group, you can stand if you'd like. As soon as we finish, but you need to be looking at your group. So I have 3 questions for you, 3 very important questions that are going to shape today's session. The first question, which is very important to me, is why are you here? And the reason I ask that, I ask out of sincerity because we know that professional development generally, most educators hate because they find very little benefit in it, they find they're being spoken to, and they find that they didn't leave with anything. So you must have come here and dedicated your Thursday for a reason. I'd like to know what that reason is. Were you forced by somebody? Did somebody, I don't know. You tell me. You must have come with something. Some question, some need, something you want to gain. Because you read the title, you read the abstract, you came with a need. So I'd like you to ask yourself and then share with your group, why am I here? Why did I come today to this particular topic? The second question is, who's in the room? So i.e., who are you? What do I bring? What's my position? What am I doing? Who are you? So tell us, why am I here and who am I? And the third critical piece is, what's my essential takeaway? What do I need to leave with today to feel like this was useful, successful? I need to know that because that's going to help us determine what's on your mind. So what do you need to leave with today for you to say, this was an amazing workshop? Not that I want it to be, I'm okay if it's not an amazing workshop, but that's, as educators, we know that if you have a student sitting in front of you, you want to do your best job. If you don't learn, I'm not going to sleep well at night, right? What was the point of me as an educator sitting in front of students in a madrasa, teaching them something, and they go home and they don't learn anything? And why did I bother? It's not worth the paycheck. It's not worth the effort. So it's very important to know what's my essential takeaway. What would I like to leave with today? So I'll give you 5, maybe 7 minutes in your small groups. You will answer 3 questions. Why am I here? Who am I? And what is my essential takeaway? Bismillah.
Number 3.
Okay, number 3? Oh, number 3. Where's number 3?
What are the differences that you have in your life? Internalize the Islamic ideas. So what kind of curriculum of level, in terms of curriculum, in terms of pedagogy, and in terms of
Our group had almost the same kind of takeaway, first and third question, which was we are already doing some kind of, and we want to see whether the mapping you're going to teach us, the difference between both of them, and that's our main takeaway. To improve our mapping from your mapping.
Okay. Other? Yes?
In this group, we are for different subjects rather than one integrated curriculum for the school. So that is something that we're trying to come to grips with over here. And some takeaways included that, sorry, where am I?
That's okay, takeaway is fine too.
Okay, so on the takeaway side is that how can we work on an integrated curriculum and maybe start to break out of the silos where we teach geography and history separately, and maybe start to integrate those as well.
Okay.
Sorry, there was one more point,
Sure.
which was the differentiation of the terms Muslim and Islam
Here, takeaway?
in takeaways, which is that Islamic curriculum versus Muslim curriculum.
And takeaways, we can have some tools for doing what we want, what we have, some tools for the integration of the curriculum. So that's one takeaway.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, when you say integration, you mean integration?
The school right now we're talking about curriculum as in a curriculum for the secular subjects
Okay.
and a curriculum for the Islamic studies.
Yes, okay.
So rather than that, we should be having an integrated curriculum where all of it fits towards what is it that we want to, what is the knowledge we want to give, what are the skills we want to develop, what are the attitudes we want to develop.
Okay, excellent. Others?
Your perspective about national curriculum of Islam. Actually, what is the practices of teaching of Islam and these kind of things. Not just basically you are selling these kind of things. You would like to improve our national curriculum, our practices, our approaches, our strategies. That's why I want to know what are the existing in our curriculum, our teaching practices, our content, pedagogies, methodologies, and the teaching approaches. So this actually want to know the difference and your perspective.
That's a lot. That's good. Alhamdulillah. Yes.
So actually, some of us are already teaching and some of us are going to do this after completing studies. So we are here to enhance our knowledge and to get to know what is the way of teaching. So we are here to get to know that what is the best way to teach the students and what is the best way to mapping the curriculum. So we are here to learn the best way.
Okay. Before we continue on the brother side, sisters, would you like to interject? Sisters, do you have any reasons of why or what your takeaways are? Someone speaking?
Yes.
You keep it on.
If I turn it off, I can't hear you. Did we miss what you said? Did someone say something?
We get
If you said something, can you say it again?
Ladies,
Ladies, can you say it again?
She said, क्या कहना है?
The why and the
How to integrate different subjects Islamically, and how to map the syllabus curriculum.
Is that similar to this one, or is it different? You're thinking to integration of secular and Islamic subjects?
Different subjects, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Can you use black and white for this?
They've given me red. They've given me Christmas colors, red and green. I didn't choose it.
That's
Okay. Others? But it's a good point. So we know there's multiple people interested in the same area, so that's good. Other areas or interests? Why? Yes.
This came out not in a very dominant way, but personally, and I'm sure others over here also. Because I'm assuming people before us have tried to do it. So I'm also interested in the history of it. And that of course means the theoretical part of it. So that gives us a very strong foundation and a platform to build on.
Okay, great. Anything else? Yes.
एक चैलेंज ये आता है कि ये जो पहला पॉइंट है जिसमें इंटीग्रेशन की बात हो रही है
जी।
तो जब पूरा मैप डिस्कस हो जाता है तो उससे रिलेटेड जो टीचिंग कंटेंट होता है जो कि टीचर मांगते हैं जो बच्चों की वो इंटीग्रेटेड फॉर्म में डेवलप करना ये एक चैलेंजिंग टास्क होता है। जो अवेलेबल कंटेंट है पब्लिश कंटेंट जो डिस्कस किया जाता है और जो पब्लिश कंटेंट है उसको मैच करने के लिए ये स्कूल के लिए बड़ा थ्रेट भी है और इसको कैसे ओवरकम किया जाए
Between what's published and what's intended.
Yes.
We're working with the O and A level system. That system has got some built-in values and morals, which may differ from the values and morals that we want to inculcate. So how do you bridge that gap?
Okay? Yes.
So two things from our group that I haven't heard from others. एक तो why में ये है one of us works with youth. So there's confusion on comparing Islamic schooling with mainstream schooling with homeschool. तो अगर हम guidance देना चाहें तो किस तरफ लोगों को आए करें? Is that fair?
Sorry, Islamic schooling, homeschooling, and
mainstream school. तीनों में क्या फर्क है और आज ही के लिए बेहतर क्या है? टेक अवे में one thing I heard was different तो ये कि हम सब एक साथ में चल रहे हैं. So what can we learn from each other, or how can we collaborate, or join forces? The attendees. लेकिन सब चले जाएंगे फिर हम रह जाएंगे.
Ideally, we would want that, inshallah ta'ala, there should be some kind of consortium which comes out of the room so that we are not working in the silos and we are all the energies are harnessed in one way, in one direction.
MashaAllah, this is an excellent point. Largely because, as you know, by the end of our 8 hours together, we're not going to develop a curriculum. So the work is just going to begin, right? The objective of today is to get us thinking, and then the work actually begins. So this sort of a group, of collaborative group, it needs to happen. And inshallah, hopefully that's something we can talk about, maybe during the breaks or near the end of the day, and talk about how we can not lose in touch or develop some sort of a collaborative group. I think that's very, very critical. Because, like I said at the beginning, and like you already all know, that we've got the same intentions, and we're all striving for the same path. It's a matter of how do we borrow, share, benefit from each other, which is going to save us not just a lot of time, but it's going to improve the work that we do. Because even by disagreeing with somebody, there's a lot of benefit. Because it helps us understand what our stance is and how we differentiate ourselves. And by seeing what somebody else is doing, we might even gain some ideas and adapt it or adopt it in a different way. So, are we okay with the sisters to share some thoughts?
Or you can make reports after the day.
So sisters, we will assume that what's on the board is the same thinking that's in your heads. If that's
different for higher, secondary different, primary different, curriculum they have already. What we do in different schools, like that gentleman had just said, that harsh reality we are going to that. Islamic schools basically we are just copycat, following different materials from different sources. So curriculum is there already. And syllabus is basically, we take some points, some, topics or some from the broader collection, we choose selective ones as per the level of the students, as per the level of the class, that's syllabus. And that is called syllabus. But unfortunately, as that gentleman said, the harsh reality, we should think over this globally there should be a Islamic curriculum where we can integrate every subject Islamically, so that the people, the nation, the generation that's coming, they can be shaped accordingly Islamically.
Good. Any other thoughts about curriculum and
Actually, I wanted to add to this to the point which Sir has mentioned. What we know about curriculum, as far as Islamic schools are concerned, we only consider syllabus to be a part of curriculum, and we target syllabus as curriculum, and we simply apply the contents of the course books, and we divide those topics, and then we try and teach them. So there is no basic concept of curriculum available in our system, as it were. So this is what we need to decipher and identify how to change this ideology.
okay, good, excellent.
The competent authorities of the state. This is internationally recognized term that is being followed by the national level of the whole world, all countries of the world. And in American, where some states are also doing these kind of things, and this of the world is considering curriculum is something which is being prepared by the nation, by the competent authorities of the government, and syllabus is something which is called schools and institutions and provinces and regions and local areas can interpret the topics as per their students' level, their need, their culture, social, religious perspective.
And one more thing I wanted to say, there was a document available curriculum 2006. I don't know how many of us are aware of that document. That was a very comprehensive document, but unfortunately there hasn't been any improvement after that first initial document which was prepared. And then there was no integration of that particular document to the syllabus, because we never had any kind of resources or material available in the market, because for that curriculum to be applied into the education system of Pakistan or in Pakistan, even at Sindh or provincial level, we do not have any particular course material available. So for that to happen, we would have to actually look at the curriculum document and then start working and developing the course material.
Yes.
Well, the crop is extracted from that particular curriculum, and already people have talked about that. And curriculums are developed at national level, as we have here in Pakistan as well, and that is developed at the board level or university level. Well, if we do not have the harsh reality that if any of the Islamic school doesn't have any curriculum or particular syllabus, so I think none of the Cambridge school all over the world, they develop any curriculum. Actually, they also have FYP, PYP. Actually, these are the jobs done by the boards or the universities. And for the problems which we all are talking about here, whether it is related to the curriculum or the syllabus, well, a small school, it cannot have that material resource, it cannot have that mental resource, it cannot have those number of PhDs to develop a curriculum or a syllabus. So the solution for all the problem is to have our own Islamic board. Like we have for O levels and A levels, we have Cambridge University, which is acting as a board. If you want to acquire technical education and you want to do your matriculation or diploma, you have board of technical education. And if you want to go for matric or intermediate education, you have intermediate and secondary education board. So this problem cannot be solved at that level which we are looking for, and we all will be working in chunks and pieces and in our own quarantine environment, and all we need to do is we have to integrate, and the integration and that platform will be the Board of Islamic Education. That is the only solution.
And the sisters unfortunately aren't able to hear or communicate or even see the board. So they've requested, if you don't mind, that we take a short break, because they don't want to miss the continued conversation. It's getting richer and richer as we go, and they feel like, if we keep going, they're missing it. So if you don't mind, we'll take a stretch break. I don't know if it's a tea break, I don't know if it's a chai break, so it's a stretch break. If you find chai out there, let us know, and if you don't, take a stretch. Sisters? So, sisters, we haven't heard from you, so maybe what would be beneficial is if you could just give me a sense of what you've heard thus far, what you haven't heard maybe, and what gaps. Is it the stuff on the board that I should keep? And any other gaps we can fill before we continue, so that you're on the same page. And secondly, then we'll hear from you in terms of your responses to the why and the takeaways. So please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. We actually left off at 10:10, sort of, because we couldn't hear exactly like what was going on in the lecture that we were giving and the discussion that we were doing. Another concern was that the participants who were sitting there, they did not have any mics with them, so we couldn't really hear what questions they were asking and what kind of summary they were delivering. So that was another thing that we missed out on whatever they had to say and their valuable input in that regard. Then again, the board was not very visible either, so we couldn't really see the points that were being put on it as such, and then the discussion that ensued afterwards. So that was something again to look at very closely, and yet we did not have any time to or even give our input. So this was because we had formed groups here as well. There were 5 groups that were running, and each one of them had summarized their own thing that were asked about. Exactly what the essential part that they would take back and where are they from and so on and why they're here and so on and so forth. So this is something that we missed out. So these are 3-4 points basically. If anybody else wants to add on the day, yes.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum everyone. This point here in the green marker takeaways where they say tools for integration. Integration is something that if Dr. Neyman could just explain what is meant by integration when they say tools for integration. Does it mean a compilation of ahadith or what does this mean?
Sure. Okay. So maybe this is what we can do. The good news is that most of the comments, inshallah, I hope most of the comments that were made on the brother's side, we've captured on the board. And given that the sisters have not seen the board, maybe what I'll do is I'll just repeat what's on the board as a summary to capture the brothers' thinking. And then sisters, we'll hear from you of your whys and takeaways for a few minutes. And then where we left off was we were going to just talk about a few concepts and terms. So what I'll do is I'll add the concept of integration to our list of concepts to clarify before we move forward. Okay, so the plan, again, just to kind of pick up the momentum where we left off. 3 things. 1 is I'll summarize the board. 2, sisters will hear from you. And then 3, we'll clarify some terms. The outcome is to teach punctuation. Okay, you're teaching punctuation in English. So what you do in year 1, in Spiral, you teach full stops, then question marks, then exclamation marks. Okay, you're teaching punctuation. You teach full stops, then question marks and exclamation marks. In year 2, yes?
Sorry to disturb, but would we get this presentation or we need to take screenshot or write it down? So,
well, it's up to you. Is it shareable?
Yeah, absolutely.
so we don't need to write everything.
No.
Sorry.
No.
Jazak.
So punctuation, year 1, you do full stops, question marks, exclamation marks. Year 2, capital letters for proper nouns and commas and lists.
Sir, can you possibly turn those 2 lights off? Because I think altering the vision.
Sisters, can you see the screen okay?
They have a separate.
Just want to double check that they're following. We don't want to find out at lunchtime that we have to recap. Okay, so while we're figuring out the lighting, you go from full stop, question marks, exclamation mark, then you do capital letters, commas, then you do word contractions, apostrophes, then quotation marks, then apostrophes, and then year 6 you do commas to 7. Can you relate? Have you seen this, right? In the curriculum, you do one thing at a time, and over time you learn punctuation. Okay? Perfect. Is that good? Much better?
I would suggest if you can turn off these lights on the projector.
These 2 lights.
These 2 lights.
The screen is clear to us.
Clear? Okay.
Yes.
If it's okay, I mean, if everyone's it's clear, let's leave it.
Is the board clear? Is the whiteboard clear?
Is the whiteboard clear for you, sisters? We won't be using the whiteboard for a
No,
few
we
minutes.
don't have.
It's okay, we're not going to be using the whiteboard for it, so it's fine. Okay, so you're teaching punctuation, and you over time, as you can see, it's getting more and more complicated. Right? This is called the spiraling curriculum. Most curriculum have been developed like this. So when I ask about curriculum mapping, this is exactly what I'm talking about. That we determine that first we start off with full sentences and question marks, and so you tell the child, okay, we want you to write a full sentence today. Now we want you to write a sentence that ends with a question, and they write that. And then they say, okay, now we're going to add in commas. And then next year we're going to add in, but this is a year difference. 1 year after the next, we're learning this concept. So for an entire year, they just try to master this, then they master this, then they master this. Let me give you an example from the CELA. This is again from a curriculum. I've taken this, again, please don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing the curriculum of this particular organization. But I'll tell you the name of the organization so you know that I'm basing it on existing content. This is the I Love Islam curriculum, series of textbooks. Schools, and in other schools that are doing things that are more against the grain. Sisters, can we get a question from the sister side? If you have questions, that is, not necessarily.
About these stages of development, I've studied them, cognitive stages and Maria Montessori's stages, and also moral. But what I have found is that they are not watertight, these stages. They at times overlap, sometimes, but it's not delayed. Even if the child is not doing what he's supposed to be doing in that particular stage, it's not delayed. Is it marked delayed or not? What is your idea on that?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last, you said it's not delayed?
It is, yeah, the stage, if a particular skill is not mastered at that stage and it comes later, it doesn't mean that the child is delayed.
Right. Yeah, there's something...
They're not watertight.
First of all, you're absolutely right. They're not watertight stages. They're guidelines. These are guidelines for developing curriculum. And again, it's excellent point. It's not meant to be strict, that this has to be taught at this age and mastered at this age. It's a guideline that justifies what you're introducing at what age. And the second thing about delayed, there's something in curriculum called social progression, which was the idea that it's more important for students to continue with their developmental grade, with their peers, even if they may not have mastered the concept. So for example, if you get 60% in mathematics, you hold the student back, they haven't mastered it. 60% is far from mastery. But you push them to grade 7, and then you push them to grade 8, and they keep getting 60%, but the theory in education is that it's better to keep pushing them forward because they will at least progress and maybe it'll click, as opposed to holding them back and they may stay in grade 6 forever in mathematics. Right? So that's a theory. Don't necessarily agree with it, but that's the general approach is social progression in grades. If they get above 50% or 51%, I don't know what it is in Pakistan, but I know in Canada the young students passing 51%, and they keep moving forward, which is social progression. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I think what you presented here was three different models with which different ideologies and curriculum have been developed, right? Now what we are discussing about analyzing curriculum, the activity that we will conduct.
We discuss, debate a little bit about our current context first, and then we apply this to the sample curriculum that I had followed. Now I actually realized that I did have an activity like this built in that we skipped earlier today, so I went back to it. And I think what we can do is, it actually makes more sense now that we've covered the three contentions that I shared about spiral and mastery curriculum, about KSA, knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and about the stages of development. So these are the three key pieces that I think are worthy of discussion. Now, given that we're all educators and have been working with curriculum, even without looking at a document, I think we can have this discussion, which is around 4 questions. The first is, how has the curriculum been mapped? The ones that you have access to. In your school, in your institution, whether it be a national curriculum or it be a local developed curriculum, how has it been mapped based on what we've discussed? What's included and what's left out?
What's emphasized and what's not? So what have you, what are the focuses, the emphasis? What's the end goal? What's the end goal? What's the end outcome that we're hoping this curriculum is going to achieve in Islamic studies, or the teaching of Islam? And the critical question I think for all of us is, are we satisfied with it? Are we satisfied with the curriculum we currently have? I assume that all of our answers will be no, but then why not? So that's where the constructive criticism comes in, is why are we not satisfied? So in our existing groups, I did, by the way, try out the chairs while all of you were gone. So I found out the chairs can swing almost halfway around. You don't all have to laugh at the same time. But I did try it out. So the chairs can swing both ways, halfway, which means that if some of you in a group sit on this side and the other half swings around, we'll have a nice conversation. And we can work with the existing chairs that we have. It's not all smiling. You're thinking I'm serious. I'm joking. It's light. We just had a heavy lunch, so we gotta keep it light. So those are the 4 questions. If you can turn in your groups so you can see each other, let's talk about it for 10, maybe 12 minutes, and then we'll have some discussion. Okay? Same groups, yeah. And if you need to shift, if it's too tight, there's rooms, there's space at the back. And sisters, same thing. Sisters, are you okay? You got the instructions and forming groups? Questions are up here. Hopefully you can see them.
We are trusting the publisher for that.
So we're talking about our existing curriculum, which will be
out because we have a lack of time. If we have enough time for teaching and learning, so it's my opinion that we have the best result as a overcome or achieving the whatever we want to are getting. Thank you so much.
Okay. So the list on the board is not intended to be a competition. But I think what this does, when you have a list like this, you begin to identify some of the criteria that you would use for analysis of curriculum. So for example, if you take the idea that 2 people mentioned, one on the brother side, one on the sister side, about redundancy or repetition, that you could look at any curriculum and you could analyze and say, let's look at whether there's redundancy or repetition.
Yes? This is a group of my group was, can I just say what they were saying? Because
Sure.
it doesn't seem to be here.
Sure.
We seem to be, most of us were quite satisfied with the textbooks that we have, and they seem to be hybrid of mastery and spiral, and especially at the primary level. But what we feel that our students, we are unsatisfied is that our curriculum or our teaching is not developing skills and attitudes, especially thinking skills. When the students grow older, we see a great lack of thinking skills, right?
Right.
As well as conversation skill, discussions, listening, all these things. Thank you. I'm sorry to disturb you.
No, it's a good point. And so lack of skills was mentioned twice. We had redundancy and repetition twice. And like I said, these are ways that you develop. Somebody had mentioned earlier, developing a rubric. You develop a rubric or a way of analyzing and critiquing the curriculum could be based on these aspects. Are we teaching enough skills? Are we teaching enough critical thinking skills? Are we teaching, is there aspects of redundancy that could be looked at more carefully? Repetition. Are we achieving our intended result? Have we articulated our intended result? And then what made it strong? Having strong textbooks, well, that's the outcome. Hopefully those are strong, but we have to discuss what makes them strong. But the idea of purpose and objective, the brother who shared that in their curriculum, their strength, because they've articulated the purpose for each aspect, that's extremely important. And then we look for that in other curriculum. So this is good. I think that we got some initial discussions. We're going to now move to the activity that I was mentioning, where we're going to look at different curriculum. I've got 3 different curricula that I'd like to share. You'll stay in your same groups, but we'll stay in our same groups, and I'll explain the 3 different curricula that we're going to look at, and using a similar approach to analyzing. Now the we're going to focus on the idea of skills and attitudes. So we spoke about you recall earlier in the morning about knowledge, skills, and attitudes. We talked about what's covered in knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And we've gone through this through the curriculum as well. So you're familiar with it now. I think it's important to acknowledge the centrality of character. That in any Islamic studies curriculum, in any program on Islamic studies, adab and akhlaq, tarbiyah is an essential component, etiquette is an essential component of that. Now, if you look at, there's plenty of classical texts. Imam Ghazali's text on the duties of brotherhood is one of many. But you'll see that this is embedded in the Islamic tradition. There's plenty of texts that talk about perfecting one's character, perfecting one's way of being, in your interactions, in the way that you speak with people, in the way you act, in your salah, in your sincerity, in business dealings, and so on and so forth. So in terms of character and attitudes, we know that's embedded in our tradition. Similarly, when we talk about skills, there's a really important text I think that I would direct you to, that was a study done by Kalam Research, an organization that does research on big questions and tradition. And they gathered a group of scholars. It's a UK-based, I think it's a UK-based organization. They gathered a number of ulama from across the world to come and talk about the state of the madrasa curriculum. And out of it came a publication called the Madrasa Curriculum in Context. And it was Sheikh Hamza Karawali authored the summary of what came out of the discussions. And in this text, one of the things that he mentioned that I thought was really useful for us is he says that every science in the madrasa curriculum was organized around questions, with precisely defined subjects and predicates. A science was then mastered by progressively studying its teaching and text with a professor until one had at one's fingertips its most important questions, their evidence, the scholarly disagreement around them, the evidence of each scholarly position, and the responses to the evidence of each. Studying a science in this manner required the two sciences of critical thinking, logic.
You can stay where you are or sit as you like. Okay. Have any of you seen anything like this?
Has anyone seen anything like this in an Islamic school context? Anybody?
Yes, not exactly the same, but there are certain things which are written statements.
Good, excellent. Can anyone see the benefit of something like this if we had it in all of our schools?
Yes, we should be having this.
Should. I mean, I think the powerful aspect of this, of a learner profile, is the way it's described when it says, all learners strive to be. It answers the question that we first walked in with, which is, what's the overall outcome that we want for our schools? If you learn Islamic studies, you learn Islam, what does that look like? We'll leave the measurements thing aside for a second. But what does it look like? Now, if you said to me, your child will come out as an inquirer, knowledgeable, a thinker, a communicator, a principled in their thinking, open-minded, caring, risk-taker, balanced, reflective, I'm going to at least say, okay, well, you've at least articulated what you think the child will overall look like at the end of all these years. And then we can get into details of what this means, but at the start. So I think it's a powerful exercise in that it gives us an example of articulating the overall outcome that we aspire for in our schools. Now, the question I had asked you to discuss was, what would this look like in an Islamic school? Would it change? Would you add, remove, edit, adapt, any of them? And what did you come up with? Can we get some ideas of what did you come up with? We'll start on the brother's side and then go to the sister's side.
Well, the opening line, IB learners profile. So the opening line for an Islamic school to develop a practicing Muslim who is an international citizen and having a well-rounded personality who is ready for challenges of tomorrow. So this should be the opening line for that. And the basic idea behind that is modernized. The student who is passing out is modernized without being westernized, and will develop him intellectual, the development side, intellectual, physical, emotional, and spiritual. We have added one. These three were there in the IB document. We have added spiritual in that. And one thing which is missing here, it's a very comprehensive thing which they have elaborated here, but naturally they were not Islamic. So we should add another heading here in the beginning, before inquirer. That should be as slave of Allah or Abdullah, which is the primary role of Islam.
Okay, so how would you take this into the curriculum? Sisters, let's start with you. How would you take this into the curriculum? How do you weave this in? Given that we were critical that a lot of the curriculum we saw were knowledge heavy, how do you bring the attitude so that it's embedded in your curriculum?
Assalamu alaikum. What I feel is that we have everything, system is laid down, the content is very good, books are available, everything is there. But what we need to work on is our teaching methodologies. The way the teachers are teaching, that needs, I would say, revolutionary change. There's a term called flipped classroom approach, where teachers need to overcome their thinking of that theory of jug and mug, that I am a jug and they just have to fill up the students. It's not that way. Students bring about a lot of experience from their side as well. So it's we have to think of strategies, teaching methodologies where students are given the opportunities to speak, to explore, to reflect, to communicate with each other. And I don't think in any of the Islamic schools we provide opportunities to students to communicate with the students of any other country where they can express their ideas, their learning, they share their learning. It's not happening anywhere. I don't, up to my knowledge. This is the basic flaw which I feel.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. No, I agree with you, and I would emphasize that you're right in saying that you would take this sort of an IB learner profile, if you had an Islamic version of it, and you would look at how teachers would embody these and impart these pedagogically. But if we put pedagogy aside for a minute, instruction aside for a minute, and given that our conversations have been about curriculum today, how do we then make sure that this is actually written into the outcomes of the curriculum so that we know that these things are being worked on? Yes, on the brother side?
So if we take the first one as an example,
Yes.
inquirers, right? So if you started off with that, then if that's the attitude, then the outcome would be asks questions for learning and application. And if that's the outcome, then what we need to arrange for is we need to have sessions where kids can themselves ask questions and then try to find the answers themselves.